Hello and welcome to Cycling Insights, the podcast that is brought to you by L'Etape Australia and Drops and Hoods. Whether you are a Tour de France fan, love riding with your mates, or want to challenge yourself, we have an event for you. For more information, visit letapeaustralia.com or dropsandhoods.com. I'm Matthew Keenan, and normally in Cycling Insights, in this podcast, we had a little segment called A Chat with Spratt. Things have changed for 2022. It's now the podcast with Spratt. I'm joined by multiple Australian champion, world championship medalist, Amanda Spratt. This is now your podcast. You're in the body of the podcast. The floor is all yours.
No, thanks, Matt. Absolute pleasure. I'm honoured to be on here and to be working alongside such a great like yourself.
I'll take that any day of the week. Now, sadly, particularly when it comes to podcasts, last week there was the passing of Richard Moore, who I had the pleasure to get to know a little bit, not as well as many that we've seen on social media. And one of the things that he always said, Spratty, in the podcast, when talking with Lionel Burney was, where are we, Lionel? I'm going to miss that voice dearly. So in tribute to Richard Moore, where are you, Spratty?
Well, at the moment, I think you can see my backdrop. I'm in a hotel room in Italy. Just raced Flanders on the weekend. Was coming to Italy, was going to stay with Grace Brown. 7 minutes before she was picking me up, she returned a positive rapid test, which I can say she's put it on Instagram, so it is public knowledge. But yeah, it seems like COVID is not giving up at the moment. So I last minute changed into a hotel room for a few days as I prepare for Amstel Gold, which is my next race. So getting used to staying in hotel rooms at the moment.
That's a really smart move. One last word on Richard Moore. You might want to get some of his books to try and help you pass that time. He wrote some amazing books. He wrote a book on Slaying the Badger, which was the story of Greg LeMond beating Bernard Hinault in the 86 Tour de France, and that was turned into a documentary. But some non-cycling books as well. He wrote a really good book about Jamaican sprinting and the Bolt effect after the brilliance of Usain Bolt, and the dirtiest race in history, which is about the men's 100-metre final at the Seoul Olympics in 88, where Ben Johnson tested positive. And at some point in their career, I think everybody in that final had tested positive. So to Richard's family, his partner and his son, Maxime, our thoughts are absolutely with you. And Richard, may you rest in peace. And I loved at the Tour of Flanders. You wouldn't have seen it, Spratty, because you were racing. Richard's nickname was the Buffalo. And there was somebody, I think it was on the Koppenberg, had made a little sign, and I just spotted out of the corner of my eye. It said Buffalo forever. It was spot on.
Yeah, I think, our thoughts are definitely with the family and friends. And I think, personally, I didn't know him well, but I think when you see the amount of outpouring, and I've read a lot of words from riders about the impact that he had on them. And I think when you read so much about that and from different riders, you really see the impact he had across the world.
One of the things that really caught my attention was a post from Teo Gegenhardt, who spoke about at the Giro d'Italia, I think it might have been the year before he won it or after he won it, he didn't speak to Richard for the entire 3 weeks because Richard had written something about him that he thought was a bit critical. And on reflection, by the end of the race, he went to Richard and actually apologised. Richard apologised to him. And it kind of sums up the quality of those two people, both of them, to admit a fault somewhere along the line. For you, when you're writing and somebody writes something critical about you, how do you take that? How do you deal with that?
Yeah, it always is a little bit tough. And I mean, I do read things, or, mum has Google Alerts set up, so she'll send through a Google alert or something on Amanda Spratt, and you do read it from time to time. And maybe it's a little bit critical or saying, Amanda Spratt, she's not going to perform in this race or something like that. And I mean, often, say before a world championship, I just won't read any news or anything for 1-2 weeks before because I don't want to read that, and it doesn't have an impact on me either way. But yes, every now and then you do catch yourself reading it, and sometimes it is hard not to take it personally or not to think, Matt Keenan said this about me once, or sort of next time I see you, I'll give you a few daggers. But I think for me, the best strategy is sometimes not to read all of that, especially when you're coming up to a race that you're really focused on, because you know how you're going, you know the work you've done. Maybe I wasn't as good in the last race, but I know that I'll be better in the next race because that's what I'm targeting. So I think, it's always just about more focusing on yourself and believing in what you can do.
Yeah, and as a journalist, it's a challenge as well, because our role is to assess how athletes are going. That's part of the role, particularly when you're a journalist, more so than when you're a commentator. And if I'm assessing you, for example, you've sent this benchmark that has silver medal at the World Championships, a bronze medal at the World Championships. And then you might put in a performance that I say that's below par, disappointing for Amanda Spratt. But for somebody else, that exact same result might be a really good performance because the expectations are different. And I find it difficult to get that balance right, or a challenge to get that balance right. And I'm always certain that I don't make it personal. It's not a personal attack on anybody's character. It's this is what they're capable of, and it's below that performance, or they've only done this in the past and they've stepped up another level. I try and keep it as objective as possible. But as somebody who also gets criticised for my work, I'm conscious of what it's like being on the other end.
Yeah, I think so. And it's always that balance as well. And I think as an athlete, I know what I'm capable of as well. So if I've underperformed in a race or I'm not going in as well as I want, then I also know that. So it's sometimes what you're saying is correct, but I don't want to believe it, or, it's not, it's not worth me reading it or hear it, see it in writing. I even remember, I think before the Yorkshire World Championships, I'd done my normal preparation. I think I'd done a tour in Holland, and, it was a flatter tour. So it wasn't something where I was really going for a result, but I knew it would prepare me well for Yorkshire. And I remember before Yorkshire, people were saying, Spratt's not on form. She raced Holland. She didn't, we haven't seen a result for a while. But I knew in myself that was just a preparation for Yorkshire. So I think, sometimes it's just about knowing what you're preparing for as well and what's going to come from that.
All right, so in the future, you have to send me a sneaky WhatsApp or text message to let me know what the preparation is so I can have the inside running. And if anybody else has taken a pot shot at you, I can come out in defence and go, hang on a minute, I know something you don't know. Spratty is preparing for this. That deal done. Okay, great. Okay. Well, if I was going to make any comment about your performance at the Tour of Flanders, I would say really good signs of returning to form after the iliac surgery that you had in the off season. How did you assess it?
Yeah, I think for me, like you said, I've been returning from the iliac artery surgery, and it's just been, I've done a few races now, and it's Strade Bianca, Trofeo Binda, Dwars de Vlaanderen, and Flanders was the most recent one. And for me, I've been seeing improvements in every race. I think Strade was terrible. It was a huge shock to the system. I had people questioning why I would start with something like that, and I must admit I was questioning my sanity. But every race I've been seeing improvements, and I still see that I'm far away from my top form, I think. But I'm also getting a lot of confidence from the racing I'm doing. And Flanders was definitely a step forward. If anything, I probably wasted a bit of energy earlier because I just didn't have that confidence that I would get through until the finish. I probably surprised myself how far through I did get despite wasting all the energy. So I think, I have a few easy days now, and I hope that I really can step up for the next goals.
Yeah, on the Tour of Flanders, just on when it's raced, on the same day as the men's race, do you think it would be better served if it was on a separate day, if it was on the Saturday and the men's race was on the Sunday? Or does it benefit from having the crowd for the men's race and then going on the back of the end of the men's race, having the last part of that race broadcast live throughout Europe and around the rest of the world?
I think for us, it definitely benefits from being on the same day. And I think for me, the Flanders Classics have done a really good job of just having a vision over a number of years. We've seen this year we have the equal prize money, but before that, they made the change, the switch to have us racing a bit later in the day. So the men's race can finish and then we can see the last couple of hours live. And by that point, the crowd are well and truly into their 15th beer, the Fritz. So the crowd is just mental and crazy. And I think we really value having that atmosphere there. I mean, I think having it on a Saturday, we would have the crowd there, but I just think just having that Flanders Super Sunday, the men have already raced through there. It's just, the atmosphere is incredible. And this year we raced along the Haute Quaramont, the second last cobbled sector, and that is just mental. You can't hear yourself breathe and even think. And I just had this moment there where you're going past, there's tents, the crowds are just crazy, crazy, crazy. And then we had about this 100-meter section where there was no crowd. And the thing I noticed was just the silence. It just felt, I could hear myself going over the cobbles, I could hear myself breathing, and it was just this one moment
was deafening.
in the race where, you actually noticed the silence rather than noticing the fans as much, which was a really just strange realization for me at that moment in the race.
Yeah, I think eyeballs are really important for any sport. And it's important for cycling for the sponsors to get the exposure. But I saw a post earlier on today where somebody had the stats from the TV audience just in the Flanders region alone when the women's race finished before the end of the men's race. And I think the viewing audience for the women's race that year was about 180,000. And this year, with it coming at the end of the men's race, the viewing audience for the last part of the women's Tour of Flanders was about 800,000. So that's got to be a good thing. More eyeballs is a good outcome.
Yeah, I think so. And I think we're seeing that more and more women's races. And I think the impact of that is going to be such a long-lasting impact. I always think you can be what you can see. And so I think having that coverage is really, really important. And I think the best thing for us about Flanders for women's cycling this year is having Lotte Kopecky, Belgian champion, Belgian jersey, crossing the line as the winner. Like, she had 2 goals for the spring, and that was Strade Bianche and the Tour of Flanders. And she won both of those. And I've seen footage of her crossing the line and just seeing the Belgian fans erupt. I just think for anyone in the peloton, that's inspiring to see and to know what that means for her. I have almost goosebumps thinking about it. She's not even my teammate. I don't know her well, but I can just appreciate how amazing that is.
Yeah, and she dominated the coverage on the Monday, all that because it was, a Dutchman won the men's race, Mathieu van der Poel, and Wout was at home watching. So the news coverage, all the newspapers, she was the front and back page. She was the story. The men's race just got a little bit of coverage. That's a great outcome.
Yeah, that's amazing, and not often what you see for women's cycling. I think, it's fantastic, and I think she's quite a softly spoken rider a lot of the time and not, looking for that limelight. But I think she's sort of stepping into that role now, and she's just getting better and better. And I think within that team, she's really growing as well.
Yeah, one of the big challenges that you alluded to with Grace Brown going down with COVID, you were meant to spend the next 10 days or whatever it might have been with her training with the enemy, getting ready for the next big target. How impacted has your team been by not just COVID, but illness in general? Because it's hitting every single team at the moment.
Yeah, I think, this spring has just been sort of crazy with illness, with injury. I think there's also been a lot more crashes than normal, but particularly with illness. I mean, I think I read in Paris, for example, I think there were only 59 finishes, which is like the lowest number of finishes in a number of years. We're finding as well. I mean, I was sick after Strade Bianche, and you come down with a sore throat and a runny nose, and you think, oh, for sure it's COVID. And I was doing rapid tests every day, sometimes twice a day, just waiting for the positive reading, and never positive, but just a sort of a flu-type virus. And I think whilst the world is opening up now as well, for example, in Switzerland, a lot of the countries now, there are no COVID rules. You don't have to wear a mask. If you get COVID, you do not have to isolate as well. So I think, we're in this environment now where I've almost had 2 years with masks and not being exposed to many viruses at all. And now all of a sudden the world's opening up, and it's just there now. And the latest strains of COVID are much more contagious as well. And for us, it's still a problem to get it. It's still a worry for the effect it can have on the heart. So we do have to be careful with it and still isolate. But it's for sure, I can think of 3 Australian riders at the moment who all have COVID and are out. So I think, you're seeing a lot of teams using the same riders for a lot of races in a row because of injury and illness. So it's really hitting the peloton at the moment.
Well, so that makes one of the challenges for management, and we're going to hear from Mathew Hayman shortly, but one of the challenges is actually getting a team onto the start line. In the men's Tour of Flanders, Israel Premier Tech couldn't even get a team on the start line, one of the biggest races on the calendar. So for you, you're now managing your calendar because the Ardennes Classics have always been a big target for you. And traditionally, it's Amstel Gold Race Sunday, Flèche Wallonne Wednesday, Liège-Bastogne-Liège Sunday. It's 1 week that I see as one block of racing. But with the French election, it's Flanders, Amstel, and then it is Paris Roubaix. How much does that impact on you?
Yeah, it is a bit of a change, definitely. We've always been used to having Flanders, and then you have a little break, and then you sort of have the final week and a half of preparation into Amstel. Whereas now, I raced Flanders. I finished completely empty there. I slept for 12 hours last night, which is unheard of me.
That's like jet lag sleep.
That's like a jet lag sleep. So that's how tired I was after Flanders. So I feel like a new woman today, hopefully. But now it's just a really short turnaround. So I'll have a couple of days of really focused training, and then I'm already back up to Holland. So I think for me, it's not a huge change. I think more so for the people that are targeting Paris Roubaix, I think it's a bigger change for them because normally they've got Flanders, and then it's pretty much just recovery, and then they have their final cobbled classic, and then it's sort of time to shut it off for a while. So I think it'll be interesting for that group of riders how that extra week impacts on their preparation for Paris Roubaix. And on the other side of that, I think you're going to see, especially on the women's side, where we don't have as much specification in terms of riders specifically doing one race or another is who's going to sit out Paris-Roubaix to save themselves for Flèche-Wallonne and Liège-Bastogne-Liège. So I think that's going to be something that will be really interesting to see. I can imagine a rider, for example, like Marianne Vos, second in Roubaix, but she's won Flèche-Wallonne many times. So I haven't seen what she's going to do at this stage, if she's going to do both or...
She's doing Roubaix. I bet she's doing Roubaix.
Yeah, so...
What about Amanda Spratt?
Amanda Spratt will happily watch Paris-Roubaix from the couch. No, I'm firmly focused on those Ardennes Classics. So I'm really hoping to perform there. But I'm very much looking forward to watching Paris-Roubaix. It's going to be, the women waited 117 years to get their first ever Paris-Roubaix, and now it's the second edition already within 6 months. So I think it's going to be really exciting to see what the peloton does there.
Do you think Annemiek van Vleuten will ride Paris-Roubaix, or do you know if she will? Because last year it was less of a risk because it was at the end of the season and after the World Championships, but she had a horrible crash and fractured her pelvis. So to do that in April with the Tour de France back on again, it's a big risk for Annemiek.
Yeah, and knowing Annemiek, I think she does like to avoid unnecessary or risks like that. So I do not think that she would start Paris-Roubaix. I know last year the spectacle of the event would have attracted her, the first ever one. And like you said as well, it came at the end of the season, so there wasn't a big goal after that. So I would be fairly certain that she will not start Paris-Roubaix. I don't think she's won Flèche-Wallonne before. It's sort of the one that she still hasn't managed to win. So I think she's really motivated to win there. And yeah, as always, she always seems to be on form. She is at the moment. So I can imagine her really targeting Liège. And Movistar have some really good options there for Paris-Roubaix. Emma Norsgaard, Elena Sierra both showed really strong form in Flanders. So I think the Movistar women's team are a team that are really developing at the moment, and you're really seeing big numbers there, especially in the last 1-2 years. They've really stepped up with the addition of Annemiek there.
Yeah, and what I found really fascinating at the end of the Tour of Flanders, where Annemiek finished in second position behind Lotte Kopecky, is she didn't show any disappointment in that second place finish. It was no surprise that Kopecky won the sprint, but it's the way she interacted with the other Movistar riders after they came across the finish line, and she was all positive. It was all positive reinforcement. You did a great job. You did a fantastic job. It was almost like Oprah. You win a car, you get a car. Like it was her real leadership. I saw that real leadership from her. And I saw a woman who's trying to build a team and get the confidence and get their belief that's going to be on target to support her at the Tour de France.
I think so, yeah. And I've really seen that, especially this year. I've really seen the way she's rallied the team around her. And I think the French rider Aude Bionic, who was there with her all the way into the bottom of the Quaremont, that break went with 10, 11 riders with some really dangerous names, Kasia Niewiadoma, Marlon Russa, Brodie Chapman, I think, deserves a mention there. So a really strong break, and they just didn't panic. Bionic just kept it at a reasonable distance, knowing Sierra was there, and then Annemiek could do her thing. So I think, yeah, they've really come together as a team and really believe in Annemiek. And Elena Sierra as well, I think, is one underdog or one rider that no one's really talking about, but I wouldn't be surprised to see her pull off a result sometime soon as well.
And she's fast. We've seen her at the Cadel Evans Great Ocean Road Race. She's really fast. Well, given that you're not riding Paris-Roubaix, I think we should talk to somebody who's ridden it a few times, and he's won it once, just the second Australian to win it. Here he is, one of the sports directors now with Bike Exchange, Matt Hayman. When you look to the Flanders Classics, Roubaix, the Cobblestones, one name that comes to mind recently in Australian cycling is that of Mathew Hayman. And the good news for Mathew Hayman is this year he gets an extra week because Amstel Gold has gone into the middle between Flanders and Roubaix because of a little thing called the French election. Matt Hayman, welcome to Cycling Insights.
Thanks very much for having me. Yes, here from Belgium, we've got an extra week. Got an extra week to sort out logistics and try and go from what was traditionally an Ardennes race, and where we changed the whole team over to keeping another Cobble Classic in between.
Does it feel weird?
Logistically, it's a bit of a nightmare. Yeah, it does, and it's definitely changed our lineup. And it's given the guys that traditionally target the Ardennes almost one less race to target because, if you're doing Pays Basque this week, you're probably not going to be in Amstel Gold. So I think we'll see a lot more of the traditional classics riders, your Flanders riders at Amstel this year, carry through to Roubaix, and only really gives the Ardennes Classics guys two chances.
Yeah, because traditionally you would get to the end of Flanders and Roubaix as one block, and they're your cobblestone specialists, and then
Yeah.
Amstel Gold, Flèche Wallonne, Liège-Bastogne-Liège. It's 1 week essentially, but it's one block of racing. So it's a huge change for you guys logistically and for your riders.
Yes. Yeah, so they used to call it the triptych, so the three races on over that week. So now, I mean, it gives an opportunity for some of the guys that do Flanders to carry on and have a go at Amstel Gold. Somebody like Michael Matthews on our team crosses over anyway, and he's very much in that. But we've got a lot of other guys that wouldn't traditionally go to Amstel, and they've been, well, not forced to, but it's an opportunity for them to see what Amstel Gold Race is all about.
So let's talk about the Tour of Flanders for a little bit. And for you guys, it was good but not great. I didn't think Michael Matthews made any mistakes, but the 2 guys in particular out in front ended up 1st and 4th. They were clearly stronger than everybody else. Yeah,
look, I was pretty amazed to see we went into the Old Quaremont the second time with the original breakaway still away, a chasing group of very strong riders at almost 40 seconds in front of the peloton. And the first guy to come off the Old Quaremont was in fact Pogačar, and I've never seen anybody ride up the Old Quaremont quite that fast. I'm guessing Strava will decide if he was the fastest guy ever, but in at that point in the bike race to ride through 2 groups and come out the top there, and from that point I knew pretty much the writing was on the wall, and we were kind of riding for a podium at best. But yeah, it just shows you that cycling, it's never done till the finish line. I mean, we left the course at 1 kilometre to go. The televisions froze. I had no internet. And I waited what seemed like an eternity. And the race radio said, first Mathieu van der Poel, second Dylan van Baarle. And we thought, no, they've made a mistake. They had almost 20 or 30 second lead going with 800 metres to go. So it wasn't until the next day that I actually saw the footage and saw what happened. I'd assumed that he dropped a chain or crashed.
What did you make of it? What did you make of his decision to sit on the wheel of Mathieu van der Poel and risk a spot on the podium?
I think riders at that level make those decisions more often than we give them credit for, and that's why they're so good. And nobody, when he does that and wins Flanders, we call him a genius. And now it's easy to criticise. I think what's also very impressive is, as upset as he was, that he goes to the bus, he regroups, and he was pretty philosophical about what had just happened, how he'd raced, what it meant to be in Flanders. And I think that's something we see from Pogačar and Roglic, and that ability to be like that and to really enjoy the sport for what it is. And to see that it was a guy having fun in Flanders and not have that weight of the world or his team, really, he went out and raced.
Yeah. Well, for what it's worth, I had this discussion on Monday with Mitch Docker, and Mitch said Pogačar made a mess of the sprint. I said, no, he didn't. I said, what is the point of a guy who's won the Tour de France twice, racing for second, racing to secure a spot on the podium? He could have done a turn and secured himself a spot on the podium. But I love that he risked everything. He took the punt by staying on the wheel in pursuit of victory. And that is what defines a champion.
And we see him do that at the Tour de France, and we see Roglic do it at Tour de France too. They need to risk on descents. They need to risk. It's 21 days, and they're taking risks all the time. And I think if you are too cautious in this sport, that it doesn't pay off. I think there's an element where you just have to throw it all out there and yeah. So yeah, no, super exciting. And again, I mean, this race just, I think it's always, even with the absence of Wout van Aert, we thought it might be a fizzer, but it was far from that.
It was a long way from it. There's been a lot of hype about Wout van Aert for the last couple of years as the most complete rider in cycling, or a battle between he and Mathieu van der Poel. But in my time in cycling, and I've rode my first race more than 30 years ago, about 32 years ago, and I've been loving and following the sport before that and ever since. He's the best guy I've seen. Tadej Pogačar attacking at Strade Bianche on a gravel section downhill, winning the Tour de France, being the strongest guy at the Tour of Flanders, and then doing a post of himself at the entrance to the Arenberg Forest, all smiles on his face 24 hours later, teasing everybody. Obviously, it was a Tour de France recon. He's the best thing I've seen.
Yeah, no, very, very complete bike rider. The ability to climb, time trial, and now we know the ability to ride the cobble classics, not just the classics. But yeah, he's, what we said, it's easier to race against somebody who's predictable, and that unpredictability when you're not sure. And Macho has that as well. I think Walt is a little bit more calculated, and you can kind of read his tactics a bit easier, but those guys are hard to race against because you're not sure what they're going to do, and they're willing to risk everything, and they're willing to do something that is almost uncalculatable. So it's hard.
So then looking forward to the Tour de France, and you'll know about the cobblestone stage that there is, and some of the sectors from Paris Roubaix. Take Bike Exchange out of it. Let's take a look at the two big rivals between Jumbo-Visma and UAE. So Roglic, who you've mentioned, and Pogacar as well. If I'm in the Jumbo-Visma team bus and I'm trying to get Primož Roglic to win the Tour de France, and I know there's a cobblestone stage at the Tour, I'm really nervous about what I've seen over the weekend on his ability to handle a spring classic, and you've got to get Roglic across those cobblestones safely. How do you read it?
Yeah, I mean, he's got a team to do that. Definitely has a team that has the ability to support him in with Wout van Aert and other riders. They've definitely got a very strong team, but obviously Pogacar will normally have my old teammate, I've forgotten his name now.
Matteo Trentin?
Trentin, of course, who obviously guided him around Flanders and is a very savvy rider, but the confidence the confidence that Pogacar will have after his performance on the weekend. And again, that says to us, that maybe he won't see that Roubaix stage as a stage you just have to get through, but as an opportunity. Which is just the next level of these guys, the way he could potentially think of, no, that's not just a day I'm going to get through. And we saw it with Nibali a few years ago. It's actually a day to make a difference. That's an opportunity for me.
Yeah, it can be a defining day. There's been a few changes at Bike Exchange this year, and the biggest recruitment across on the men's team, at least, has been Dylan Groenewegen. He's had a few wins already. How's he fitting into the squad and the Aussie culture?
Oh, the Aussie culture takes a little bit to get used to, I think. No, he came back from a tough year last year, and he's still on his way back to his best form. I had him over in UAE, and we didn't quite get it right there, but we came off some wins in Saudi Tour, and we're still, he's started to work really well with Luka Mezgec, who's also very, very smart in the finals, and we're very close in the punter, and that would have been a big win for us, especially up in Belgium and in Europe, to try and get that big win. And it was pretty much a photo finish. And we're back at it again tomorrow. So tomorrow we'll be out there trying to win here in Skelde Prize. And we've got Luca back. And it's always nice to have somebody of his caliber in the team. I mean, I think we've got some young guys here that have just turned pro. We've got Kellen O'Brien and Campbell Stewart, young Australian, New Zealand riders come from the track. And to be lining up in classics with Dylan Groenewegen as your leader, I think it's nice for them. He's a guy who's won stages at Tour de France. And I think that raises the level for everybody across the board. For me as a staff member as well, we've got a guy here that's ready to win, has won in the past, and so really nice to have him in the team.
Yeah, as you mentioned, he has won stages in the biggest bike races in the world. He's proven that he's fast enough to beat the likes of Caleb Ewan and Mark Cavendish. So with that in mind, looking forward again towards the Tour, and Dylan Groenewegen and Michael Matthews, I think having Dylan there will benefit Michael Matthews as it potentially takes a little bit of pressure off him. Yeah,
look, I think Michael isn't the pure sprinter. Michael needs a race like Milan-San Remo, or needs a race like, look how hard that Flanders is. And he's up against it, trying to race against the likes of Wout van Aert and Mathieu van der Poel, and to then be trying to back up and race against Caleb Ewan the next day. I think they complement each other in this team, and Michael can focus more on the stages that suit him, that are a bit lumpier, and then you've got Dylan for the pure flat work. And no, we're very much looking forward to it.
Yeah, and all sport, winning is a habit and confidence goes a long way. And if it's down, it can be hard to get it back. It must have been really important for Matthews and for the team to see him get that stage victory at Catalunya.
Yeah. Look, I mean, there's a guy that doesn't give up and he never stops trying. He's raced. The dedication that he has to the sport, and he prepares meticulously all year, and he does everything right, and he's been there or thereabouts. And we, yes, you're right. Winning is what we're here for. And we can be confident that that he's going well, and it's great to get a bunch of results. But ultimately, to see him win there in Catalonia and finally kind of get the monkey off his back was great. But those performances, we don't underestimate the Milan-San Remo, fourth in Milan-San Remo. There again, this guy is just year in, year out. He's one of the best riders, and he comes up against a Peter Sagan, he comes up against a Wolf and Art. It's tough going, but he just keeps on giving, and you've got to admire that tenacity.
He's been pretty stiff in the generation that he's in. His qualities are Sagan, Wout van Aert, Mathieu van der Poel. That's his competition, and they are geniuses.
Yeah, and as soon as Peter Sagan looks like he's kind of gone off the boil a bit, you've got these next guys coming through, and then the next one will be Pitcock or somebody else. So, yeah, but I mean, I guess that makes it all the more sweeter when you do.
Well, at Catalunya,
he's been working hard.
Catalunya, the moment that I really liked, nearly as much as his stage victory, was the next day when he was doing the lead out for Caden Groves, and Caden was sitting at about third wheel, so not directly behind Michael Matthews. And Matthews looked across the shoulder, and Caden just gave him the nod and open up the throttle, baby. And it was back-to-back stage victories, huge.
Yeah, no, very, very, very nice to see. And, Michael, very savvy in those finals. He's always able to ride. He's got enough power. And Caden has just really come of age this year, I think, towards the end of last year. And a little bit unknown probably in Australian cycling, and he's flying a little bit under the radar, but we've got a very, very fast sprinter there, and maybe also having Dylan in the team is going to spur him on too. And it was really, satisfying to see, because he'd been so consistent, Caden, this year, to see him win a stage in a World Tour race. His consistency this year, he's been positioning, and something I think he struggled with last year. Every single race he had it already a bunch of seconds and thirds, and you're telling him, look, you just keep doing what you're doing and you're going to win one, and you're just hoping that what you're saying is correct, because there's enough sprinters that never actually get from the podium to the win. And he really blasted that win, but he's riding with a different level of confidence this year, and he's just putting himself in positions to give himself the best chance to win, which wasn't always happening last year.
I don't think it's going to be long before the Australian public really get to know who Caden Groves is.
Yeah, I think he's a nice guy, and he's super quick, and I think that talent's going to show more and more in the next few months.
Well, we can't let you go without talking about Paris Roubaix. It's the last item on the agenda. We've saved the best till last. Obviously, the biggest moment in your career. Is there somebody at Bike Exchange who can win Paris Roubaix this year?
Oh, well, if I can win it, anyone can win it.
I don't know if that's quite true. I don't know.
Well, let maybe clarify that statement. I think we saw in Flanders that, yes, okay, even though the best two bike riders were out the front, Dylan van Baarle still ran second. So every race needs to be ridden, and you need to get to the finish line. It doesn't matter who's the strongest. And I guess my win highlighted for a number of other riders who would potentially be a second tier or one of those guys in that chasing group, that there is always a chance, and Roubaix is probably more so than most of the classics. It's less scripted. It's anything can happen. So yeah, like most years, I'm gonna back Luke Durbridge to have a good one, and I'd love to see him. Maybe anticipate. It might not be the early move, but definitely in the middle of the race. I think he needs to be ahead of the game. Sometimes he misses that punch when a macho goes. It's hard to follow. But yeah, we've seen in the past that these guys can get beaten, and it's not over till the finish line.
Okay, for us power nerds, can you reveal Luke Durbridge's FTP?
Oh, no, I can't. On the way to the airport yesterday, he was talking about 7,000 kilojoules in Flanders. That it's a very big day was, and almost around the 300 watt average for whatever the race distance was.
6 hours roughly.
Yeah. So it was there's some big efforts going on there. So
based on that, I'm going to predict somewhere in the mid 400s.
Yes, I would say that.
Yeah, that is phenomenal. Awesome. Matt, I can't wait for Paris Roubaix. I'm really looking forward to it. I'm sure you are as well. And do you get nearly as nervous in the team car as you did when you were riding? Nearly?
I get more nervous. I'm less in control. I can't do much, and I don't have a lot of feedback about how the guys are going, how they're feeling. So it's just I guess when I rolled out of the bus, once I kind of started the racing as a rider, a lot of those nerves would dissipate and you're in the event. But as a director, it kind of just starts to heighten then, and you're wishing and hoping and I enjoy competition and I enjoy the stress of it, but it's a long hard day in the car.
Well, I can't wait to be able to see it again. Really looking forward to it. Thanks once again for your time, Matt.
No problem.
Well, that was Matt Hayman. He's got a wealth of experience. He's now working with the men's team across at Bike Exchange. And Spratty, talking to him about the addition of Dylan Groenewegen, who's been a big call-up, I reckon, for the Bike Exchange team, a good signing for the team. I want to talk to you about a few Aussies that have joined the Australian team, Bike Exchange, Ruby Roseman-Gannon, Alex Manley, and also Georgia Baker. How have they integrated? I'm only watching the results and what racing that I can see. I like what I've seen, but how are they fitting in?
Yeah, I think it's been a great addition to the team. Obviously, Alex Manley's been on the team before, but and many people will have gotten used to her racing in the jersey, but it's actually her first ever classic season as well. So relatively new. Georgia and Ruby as well, all coming across almost from the track. I mean, Ruby's done a bit more road, but it's been really exciting. And just the way that they've managed to step into the racing over here. Ruby, first race in Europe, straight onto the podium in Valenciana. So that was quite impressive. I think not a total surprise to a lot of people in Australia, but just confirmation of her talent. And yeah, I've managed to race with them in Dwars de Vlaanderen, and we had all of us in the same team there, and just really impressed with the way they handled themselves in the bunch. The positioning into key moments has been really impressive for me.
Do you think the track helps with
I think
that?
Definitely the track's definitely helping. And I mean, I saw in Flanders coming into the Koppenberg when we have 150 riders all told to be at the front at a certain moment. It's just craziness, hectic. We were a little bit far back and I thought, oh no, we've totally stuffed up the position. And then they tell me afterwards, no, all good. We were top 10. And I have no idea how they managed to be top 10. So I think the track skills definitely get them a long way. I think for me, Alex Manley in Flanders was very impressive. I've been back and watched and seen Koppenberg, she was there, the Quaremont, she was there, just missing probably a little bit of just that, it's her first ever Tour of Flanders, just that little bit of race experience and racecraft to get through. But I think really, really exciting times for her, especially in those hillier races. Georgia Baker as well, been sprinting really well. She's had a fair bit of bad luck as well. I'm not sure. De Panne, she was supposed to be a leader and she managed to crash off into a hedge and was sort of on her back trying to get out. Thankfully, not injured, but I do know she'll be a leader at Scheldeprijs, which is coming up. So I'm excited to see what she can do there. But yeah, overall, I think really great additions, and just having more numbers there in the final and different options as well has been exciting.
Yeah, because I thought it was going to be a real challenge for you as a team this season with both Grace Brown and Sarah Roy moving on, who have been real pillars of the team for the last couple of seasons, particularly the Grace Brown had made a massive step up. Sarah Roy has always been really consistent. Them leaving the team had the potential of leaving a pretty big hole, and they've both been performing well. I'm sure you're happy to see them going really well. But it's nice to see your jersey up the front, right in the thick of the action.
Yeah,
too.
I think so. And I think, with Roy and Grace leaving, it was going to leave that gap. And I think so far this year we're having more numbers there in the final, of especially those flatter classics, having those riders there. And I think we haven't got a podium result yet or a big win yet, but I think everyone feels that it's coming. I mean, in the Belgian Classics is what I'm talking about at the moment. And I think we have 6 new riders this year alongside the new Australian riders. So I think there is that, part where we're all still getting used to racing with each other and the best plan of attack. So I feel like the momentum is building and that result will come. But I think there's just a really open and positive communication this year and people willing to take feedback and give feedback. And I think, it will take a little bit more time just to get used to all of that. But I do think a result's going to be coming very soon.
It will be, no doubt. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit about myself here now, Spratty, because I might need a little bit of assistance from you if you're happy to put your coaching hat on. I've done a couple of charity rides recently, one for the Westpac Foundation, another for Food Bank Victoria. And that's the one I want to talk to you about because that one was the first one. It was up in Bright, an area that you know pretty well, had 175 kilometres, about 3,200 metres worth of climbing, including going up Tonga Gap. We went up Mount Buffalo. Cadell Evans was on the ride. Baden Cook was on the ride. It was in the middle of March. And I went into it with having ridden 350 kilometres for the year so far. Any tips on how I could improve my performance next time around?
Train more.
I went in fresh.
I think you've, train more would be definitely one of them. And you definitely have not picked the easiest route either. But I have to say, it's amazing though what you can do. I mean, I know, I've done L'Etape Australia many years before. That's 160 plus kilometres with that much climbing. And for me, I'm always amazed what people can get through. Sometimes I see riders struggling at the bottom of a climb and think there's no way they're going to finish, or they're already walking halfway up the climb and hours later you see them cross the finish line. So I think it is amazing mentally what you're able to do in that situation, and when there's a group of people there, it's like collective suffering, I think, and you manage to get through it somehow. Yeah, but for me, it's more impressive seeing those riders that manage to finish than seeing the riders that are able to do it in 5 or 6 hours. So,
well, it's funny that you say that because the last time I did it, I was reasonably fit. I'd done quite a bit of training leading up to it, and I'd done intervals and strength endurance, and I was reasonably fit. This time around, riding up Mount Buffalo, which is about a 20-kilometre climb, I was 20 minutes slower than I was the last time we did it up that climb. So I did it about 55 minutes the previous time. This time around, it was around about an hour and 15 minutes. But I was actually prouder of myself this time around because of the lack of preparation that I had. And I just rode really smart, put in a small gear, twiddled away, made sure I had a gel to eat halfway up, at least one gel, because that's a long time to be climbing, kept the fluids in. And I was chuffed that I managed to get through it. I was really giving myself a pat on the back.
Yeah, well, I'm impressed hearing that. I think, it's almost that mental acceptance or realizing where your expectations are. And did you manage to enjoy it though?
The descent was fantastic.
That's the thing. As long as you have a fun descent or something rewarding, whether that's a food stop at the top or catching up with a mate, or it's always about that. I think community as well you find in these rides.
Yeah, it was really good. And I'm hoping that you're coming back for L'Etape Australia for 2022.
Yep, definitely. It's on my list. I'm already excited about that, and I won't miss another edition. Excellent.
Okay, well, I don't think I'll be riding. I'll be on the microphone, but I'm going to be a little bit fitter for the next time I do get to go for a bike ride with you. After Amstel Gold Race and then off to Liège, it's a pretty big time of year for you when you're at your absolute best. But what are your expectations now?
Yeah, I think I've realised over the last couple of weeks and talking to our doctors and even having a chat to Annemiek, Roy, that to be in my absolute top form, it's still probably 1-2 months away. Yeah. So I am sort of adjusting my expectations a little bit, but I feel like my form is growing and I still want to race like I'm in there with a shot at the win. I find it hard to not race like that. I am a racer, and I have to say, personally, I don't live for a race like the Tour of Flanders like I live for a race like Flèche or Liège. That's sort of my real passion, are the Ardennes. So I know I'm going to turn up at those races with so much excitement and motivation, and they are courses that suit me. For us, Flèche Wallonne has changed quite a lot. For the first time ever, we're doing 3 ascents of the Myrtle. Normally we only do 2, so I think that's really going to change the dynamic of the race and make it a harder race, which I think can suit me overall. So definitely excited, and I think, we're going to have a strong team there too. So I'm already, smiling a lot just thinking about it, thinking about the suffering. So even though I feel like my form's not quite there, I'm ready to suffer, and I'm very happy about it.
I can hear the energy in your voice increase as you start to talk about those races. Spratty, this year, throughout the year, you and I are going to do this podcast once a month. There's no longer the chat with Spratt. It's you and I doing Cycling Insights. Please tell all your friends about it, subscribe, share it with everybody else. And for more information on a couple of great events, visit letapaustralia.com or dropsandhoods.com. Spratty, good luck with the next part of the season. I look forward to speaking to you in May.
Thanks. Can't wait, Matt. And looking forward to the year ahead.
Awesome. Bye for now. Ride safe, everybody.